Hey, what's up guys, and welcome to a very more special video where I have been watching tabs for a very long time, playing it for about 1100 hours, have nearly 300 created characters. So, let's do a special. So, this is the first time I'm doing this. It's been a very long time since I've actually done one like this, but we're gonna start off here with the movement. I think the assassin proof is... Oh, I should note, I have 6 tiers up. We have F tier being horrible. Well, actually, we have S tier being God, A tier being overpowered, B tier being very good, C being neutral, D being bad, and F being horrible. Let me just fix that. So I think Assassin Proof is a B tier ability. It is quite good. Immediately closing the distance on your enemy is very, very powerful. Especially if you're a melee unit against a strong ranged unit. And being behind the opponent is just great in general. It's only it has a few downsides, being that it's pretty much a one-time use. It has like a 5-minute cooldown, but still, I think it's a pretty good one. Next up is Foolish Jump, which I believe is the Ball and Chain ability, and I think it's a pretty neutral one. It doesn't go very far, but it has the trade-off of being able to deal damage when you land. Next up is going to be Slow Walk, which is an F tier, but it's more so an F funny tier because it's a joke ability, as obviously. Then Halfling Jump. I'm putting Halfling Jump in D tier because it is very, very overshadowed by a bunch of other abilities. I'm also going to be putting Hover in D tier because really the only advantage it gives is being able to scale up surfaces as well as avoid clams. Super Jump gets an A tier. It is very, very good. It's super long distance, it's quite the fast cooldown. You close the distance super fast and just kind of start wrecking things apart. It's why Berserker is in the game. Next up is going to be the Monkey King Jump. I think it's another C tier ability. It goes up high and then just kind of come down. It doesn't go the furthest. It is technically the highest, so if you're trying to avoid something low to the ground, it is technically the jump to go for. Although Super Jump does that jump better, let's be real. Order Units Charge is going to be another A tier ability. Getting that speed boost, I don't know what the percentage is, but it is very drastic. It is a huge one. Whether it's on a ranged unit retreating or on a melee unit trying to make distance, it is so good. Mammoth Charge. I'm going to also give it a C tier. Because you can't actually use the Mammoth as a base, so the whole end of the charge is a little useless, actually. Like, flicking units up into the air with it is really hard to actually pull off as well. Order Units Stay. I think it's a D tier ability, although I can very easily see arguments made for putting this in a higher tier, because it's a utility. You're not gonna have this be a one unit ability. You're not gonna have this ability on a 1-unit army like almost everything I have is. And while I'm here, I should state that this is all pretty much on the standpoint of a single unit basis. So if this ordered unit stay is a good ability, but when there's a whole bunch of units around. Next up, we're going to move into these miscellaneous abilities. Balloon Backpack. I'm going to go ahead and put it into the C tier. It's a chance, it's essentially a coin flip whether or not you get the actual, you know, like, rocket re-entry ability. And I don't like that it's a coin flip for that. If you win the coin flip, you get big damage, but if not, then it's another coin flip for if the enemy takes damage or not. Normal Crow Wings, I'm putting in D tier. They're very small, they don't really do anything, and they just kind of get in the way of actually creating a unit. Big Crow Wings can go into the C tier. They are essentially the Crow Wings, but they work a lot better for making units, and I like it. Lay Down is going to be another F tier ability, because again, it's just kind of, you know, a joke. Bat Transformation. This is going into the B tier. Now, I know it's a very good ability. Don't get me wrong; it's borderline A in my opinion. But the thing that ruins it is that they don't keep the health; they just transform into a bat. It's a movement speed buff, as well as a reduced hitbox, which sounds really good, right? But the thing is, they can be taken out in like one shot from anything as long as it actually manages to hit them. So like, Chronomancer Dial is really good. Pharaoh Neil just kinda soft locks the game for a minute. It has its ups and downs. Next up is going to be the normal Stiffy Fear. It's bad. It's horrible. It's an F tier ability, in my opinion. You need a whole lot of units to actually, you know, scare something with this ability. It's vastly overshadowed by its giant counterpart that we will get to later. And overall, I just hate abilities that make the game take a long amount of time, like this. I can see the appeal of putting it onto like a cheap ranged unit, like put it on the Skeleton Archer or something, and that would be pretty good, but the vast majority of the time you're probably going to be making a melee unit, so I just don't think it's very good. Pharaoh Neil. I think it's an A tier, borderline S tier ability. Now what it does is it essentially stops things from moving. And the biggest part is that it disables their attack. This is why Bird God is one of the strongest units that I've ever made. Because he throws out the birds. He makes you kneel. You can't fight back against the birds. You just have to sit there and accept the damage. Unless you're lucky and the birds hit each other. Or miss. Next up is going to be the Reaper Wings, and I think this is another B borderline A tier ability. The health threshold that they have is way too low. It's like 400, 300 health they can't pierce through. So if you go up against tankier units, it's just a vanity item. They look really, really cool and are very good against swarms of small units. Next up, Spin to Win. Now, this is a C tier ability for me because it's not really all that effective as an actual tactic, you know? And it's only really good in conjunction with Enrage, because then you can turn into a tornado at half health. I just don't think it's very good. However, the very good Spin is the Red Jade Spin Slash, which is going into B tier. It has everything that Spin to Win has, on top of damage and a movement and a quick little dash to get up close, and in order to actually deal with damage. Valkyrie Wings. I might have to split B tier up into good and very good, because I also think Valkyrie Wings are a B tier ability. You fly really high, like, you're not getting hit by much, but I'm trying to find the words here. But yeah, also you dive down to hit things, and they also look pretty cool. Big Headbutt I haven't really used all that much. It's, I think the Blackbeard one, I think? It just does more damage. I'm putting in the C tier for that. Cavalry Charge. I think this is another C tier. It goes a fair distance, but it's by far the longest of the charges, really, because you back up and then go forward. It's not the most effective, you know? Dragon Kick. Oh boy, I love this ability. It is so cool. By far one of the coolest abilities in the game. It's awesome. It's really good. It's A tier, borderline S, as you just kinda jump around with it. It does an absurd amount of damage as well, sometimes, if you land it directly. And overall, it just makes you really, really hard to hit as an opponent. Now then, the Dragon Punch here is going into B tier, because it is Dragon Kick, but harder to hit. And it doesn't have the movement speed. While for Dragon Kick, you jump up into the air and then come crashing down. Dragon Punch, you kind of just swing your fist at them. I don't know why I'm trying to do the motions in real life. I don't have face cam on. But yeah, it's going into B tier because it is just Dragon Kick, but worse. Moving on to Fire Breath. I think it's a B, borderline A tier. Actually, you know what? We're making the B plus here. This is the very good. It's the very good tier. In B plus is going to be Bat Transformation, Reaper Wings, and Fire Breath. Fire Breath is amazing on a range unit. If you've seen the Struggles of Smoking Day tournament, you will see Garcello use it to great extent, because it keeps pushing them back. Anyway, moving on to the Giant Foot Stomp. I'm putting this in a B tier, because it is really, really good crowd control. It also allows you to possibly dodge attacks, although you shouldn't rely on it for dodging attacks, but it's just pretty good. Headbutt. Headbutt's getting a D tier. It doesn't do much damage. It's a bit of a movement speed. It's a bit of a movement buff, a little, because you kind of just fling forward. But if you're gonna want if you want the headbutt, you do big headbutt. It's much better. Both ice breaths, because I don't really know the difference between them, they both get to go into the C tier. Because it doesn't last at all. Fire Breath is infinite, and Ice is just generally harder to pull off than Fire. And now we move on to a whole bunch of kicks. Jester Kick and Pirate Kick I'm putting into the D tier. Red Jade Kick is in the C tier. And the Taekwondo Kick is in the B plus tier. The main difference between these is their damage. Taekwondo Kick does an absurd amount of damage. We're talking in the thousands here. It's actually a little nutty, honestly. Night Charge. I'm putting this into the B tier. I'm very torn between on the Night Charge, because it has the lowest cooldown, and but it goes the shortest. But I can see it being really, really useful in a melee battle, because you just kind of hop around the battlefield a little bit as they try to hit you. As for the Minotaur Charge, I'm gonna put this into C tier. Again, you kind of bowl units over. It's kind of similar to the Mammoth Charge, but a bit better. So, it could have gone into B tier, but I put the Night Charge there instead. Fire Wave is a worse reskin of the Fire Breath. It's all at once, knocks units over, does more damage, but if I had to choose one, I would go with the Fire Breath. Fire Wave is going to be put into the B tier. Bomb Spin. This is another really good crowd control ability. Like a really, really good one. One of the best ones in the game. And it also has a bit of a dodge aspect to it, because you go flying into the air. Just make sure you aren't making a tiny unit do this, because if you do, then it's actually going to take damage from its own bomb spin. Shout. I hate this ability. I hate it. I hate it so much. If I could make a tier lower than F, it would go there. It's horrible. It's so bad. Never use this ability seriously, because it doesn't do anything. It doesn't deal damage. The only way you're gonna win with this ability is a ring out. I hate it. Why was this created? Why doesn't it deal damage? That's the real question. Why doesn't it deal damage? It's just worse fan bearer. Because so imagine this. You're a melee unit with a shout ability. You just blew some range unit. Let's say a musketeer halfway across the map. Well, great. Now you're actually dead. I can see a scenario where you put this on a ranged unit and it's good, but then the ranged unit shouts and falls over on their face. So it's still not good. For Lightning, this is a borderline S tier ability. It's a lot of damage. It has a very large radius of AoE. It's very good for crowd control. And if you have enough of it at once, you can cause an instant ring out on simulation. It's really fun to watch. Sword casting as well is gonna be in the A tier. Very, very consistent DPS. A little bit of knockback. You can also hover, so that's an added benefit. And if you have Enrage, it doesn't matter. Also, it's homing. It's like heat seeking, so there's very little chances you miss. Vampire Bite gets to go into B+ tier. It's very good. You pin down a unit, you start draining their HP, and there's very little they can do to actually get out of it. Alrighty then, moving on to these defensive abilities. This is really, really hard. So, for godlike projectile block, I think it's a B tier. B+ tier, I mean. You can block 3 of any projectile in the game. And only 3 of any projectile. I'm pretty sure is how it works. Like, being able to block a ballista bullet, that's amazing, but there's better ways to do it. I'm also going to put Master Projectile Block in here, because it does more projectiles, but it has it doesn't do big projectiles and stuff, like it doesn't protect against ballista bolts and stuff like that. Whereas the godlike one does. Normal projectile block is going to be put into D tier because it is completely overshadowed by pretty much every other projectile block in the game. This is the same as it went for Halfling Jump, Headbutt, and the 2 kicks that I talked about earlier. Hey. This is also getting a B+ tier. The only reason it is because it looks stupid. There's no way you can make a good-looking unit with Hay, even though it is possibly the best of the blocking abilities. Complete immunity to piercing projectiles, arrows, and stuff. You can still be blown up, you can still be burnt very easily. You can still explode and stuff. Dark Peasant Hands. This is going to be our first God tier ability. Because obviously it is. It's the best ability in the game, hands down. But it's also kind of unfair because if you want to make fair units, like how I do in the tournament, no unit can use this ability as it sets their cost to millions, hundreds of thousands also. The lightning projectile block, I think, is the one that goes into A tier. The reason is because it's a similar amount to Master. It has a pretty fast cooldown. And also, it just looks cool, and there's like no chance you actually miss the projectile block. Cactus Explosion. I'm putting into C tier. I really have no thoughts on this because I haven't seen it really used all that much. I would assume it does pretty good at crowd control, but even the Cactus unit doesn't do that very well. Teacher Parry gets a B tier. It's only useful against smaller melee weapons. Like, if you have like a King Sword or some axes in the game, this does nothing. Also, it doesn't do anything against ranged attacks, but, you know, that doesn't matter. Aegis Shield. A tier. It protects against everything. It's also an attack. This is borderline S tier as well. I might... Yeah, I'm making a borderline S tier category. Order Charge, Pharaoh Neo, Dragon Kick, Thor Lightning, Sword Casting, and Aegis Shield are all getting into the borderline S tier. Aegis Shield blocks against anything, and it means anything. Even Fire Breath and Ice Breath, surprisingly. It's also an attack, and it recharges fairly fast. Void Monarch Dodge is getting an A tier. It requires you to take damage to be able to dodge, but that's okay. You teleport instantly to your opponent, and also deal damage. It's a little crazy. Mechanic Tank, I think, is a D tier, because I haven't seen it I haven't found a use for it yet. I just don't know what it does. Arrow Volley we can put that in B tier. It's kind of like it's a worse version of the Cannon Barrage, which we will get to very soon. They can be dodged, they can be deflected, but I think it also has one of the fastest of the reload speeds for these abilities. Banshee Screen, A tier. It's so good at crowd control. It is the best of the crowd control. It does a decent amount of damage and scatters units. It's really, really good. Cannon Barrage. I'm gonna put this into B tier as well as Arrow Volley because it's kind of the same. It's less projectiles, they do more damage, they stick to units, they can still be dodged, and also deflected as well. Self-copy. This is another S tier ability. It's insanely good. you can have an expensive unit. I mean, as you can see from our Season 6 end tournament, both Servants had self-copy. And they are two of the only units that do. Wyvern also had self-copy and he took top 8. Servants took first and Servant Demon Form took second. Oh, and speaking of Demon Transformation, I'm also going to talk about Chronomancer Transformation here. I think these both get a C tier. The Void Monarch and Chronomancer are very strong units, don't get me wrong, but I just hate that we have to transform into them. If I could take their animations and have a unit transform into something else, it would get a god tier, honestly, in my opinion, because that is really cool. That would be so good to have. Legacy Impale, putting in the A tier. I'm pretty torn on this, but I think it deserves A tier more than it does borderline S. Now, what it does is, it's like the Dark Peasant from the old days. Actually, now that I say that, yeah, you can get put in the borderline S tier. Because it just kind of soft locks a unit into not being able to fight. Giant Fear. This is getting a C tier. I hate the Fear ability and the Shout ability because it just makes things take so long. I hate them. I hate it. This is technically better because it will, no matter what, make a unit scared. Which, I mean, I can definitely see a use for this on a range unit. But if it's on a melee unit, just don't bother, because it's not good. Firestorm gets a B tier. And an Ice Storm gets C tier. Like I said before, Ice is harder to make work than Fire is. Because if you have a tanky unit, they just don't care about Ice at all. And if you have a skinny, frail unit, well, they free solid, but the Fire just burns them to death. Now, what makes these both really not good abilities is that cause a unit to stand in place because the opponent is in Rage of the Storm. And most of the time, the opponent will just walk past because they put the storm where the opponent was, not where they're going to be. Next up is Enrage, and I said it time and time again. It's not as good as it is. Enrage makes champions. It is the definitive, one of the two definitive god tier abilities. Now, it isn't as good as it was back when, like, Steven was really, really dominant and almost undefeatable. Because back then, it would be immediately at half health and have a much shorter cooldown. Nowadays, like, before Season 6, Steven would be able to enrage, like, upwards of 7 times. Now he gets to do it 3 times, and that is huge. That is a huge nerf. Ice Arena, I'm going to put into A tier. He is pretty good to just kind of cut something off. Like, you're now just 1v1ing a unit, instead of having to deal with an entire squad. Tornado Swipe, I'm going to put in the B tier. It does a great job of scattering units, but it doesn't do all that much damage. And if a unit is too heavy to be scattered, well then it just doesn't matter. Rocket Volley. This is going into A tier. It can still be blocked and by, like, the Aegis Shield and Lightning, but it does a lot more damage and just also kind of lags the game. Shuriken Tempest. I'm gonna put this in the B+ tier. It's a lot of projectiles. It's kind of overwhelming, but they don't actually really go anywhere. Most of them just miss. Shockwave Hammer. I think is a C tier ability, as I don't actually physically know how much damage it does. It's really weird. Like, you can have it launch down a whole buttload of times, and it doesn't seem to do anything. Oh boy, Hurricane Slash. I could go on and on about this one. Most fun, most satisfying ability in the game. It's getting a borderline S tier just for that. And even that, it's also good. You dodge an attack, then freeze units in place. Other ones can keep attacking, and you can potentially just stack a few Hurricane Slashes on top of each other. And they do up at the least and most a sixth of a unit's health, which means that theoretically you just need to have 6 units with this to take down anything in the game, anything made as well, because you get 6 of these off and they're dead. There's nothing they can do. Doesn't matter if they have a billion health or not, they're still gonna die after 6. Solar Maelstrom. This can be put into the A tier. Holds units back, deals damage, and also heals. It's a healing ability, and I think that that's really good. Spawn Witches, I think, is of borderline S tier, and I've actually been scared to put this on too many units because I thought it would kind of break weak a bit. Because what the witches do is they make units attack each other, and if you have your own units turned against each other, what do you do at that point? It doesn't really seem to be very likely that you actually do anything. Chronomancer Dial gets to go in the A tier. Its time freeze doesn't last nearly long enough to be really substantial. It doesn't really do a lot of damage and has a pretty long charge up. But still, any amount of time freeze is pretty good. Along with Shockwave Hammer, I'm going to put Sword Implosion into C tier. It's the fantasy evil equivalent to the fantasy good Shockwave Hammer. I don't know how many differences there are between the two, because Sword Implosion does seem to be better a little bit, but it's not enough to make me put it in B tier. Vlad Impale. I'm gonna put this in B tier. When you get it off, you can hold units in place for others to attack them, but also, sometimes, as we saw with All for One in the Struggles of Smoking against Soulfang, sometimes you die, and this ability activates, and just wins you the match. It's dumb. Gravestone Wall gets to be put in C tier. It's kind of half and half. If they're too close, it does nothing. If they aren't too close, it will actually do something and push them away. Both the Demon and Mosaic Wings get a D tier. They're really more actually no, Demon Wings gets a D tier, and Mosaic Wings gets a B tier. Actually, no, it gets a B+ tier. Demon Wings is more vanity than anything, and the Mosaic Wings are like the Valkyrie Wings, but you don't dive down, so if you're a ranged unit, you can actually stay up there and just not take damage. Explosive Death, F tier. It rarely works out and is just vastly overshadowed by its other death event partner, the Reaper Explosion. A lot of damage, sucks in units, can cause a huge disruption when it works. Dodges. Oh, I put the Reaper Explosion B+ tier. It still works. Backwards dodge can be B tier. It's just kinda neutral. It's good for melee, but this is really all it has. And I don't know really what the difference is between melee dodge and backwards dodge, as well as fencer dodge, because they all kind of serve the same purpose, so they can all go in there. And I'm going to put the Jester dodge in B+ here, for the sole purpose that it becomes invincible when it does the backflip, which is both hilarious to see a tabs unit do a backflip, and technically that's really strong. Painter dodge is getting an F tier because it's vastly overshadowed by blocks and other dodges. The QPD, the Quick Draw Projectile dodge, gets a B+ tier. You dodge a lot of projectiles, and some that you probably shouldn't be able to. Shogun dodge is, again, another just backup dodge for melee, so, you know. And then the Super Boxer Punch. It's a backwards dodge combined with damage and the ability to scatter, cause fall damage, and possibly cause a ring out on certain maps. So this is our definitive, well, currently definitive, Tab's ability tier list. So let's go down the line, shall we? The S God tier, your must-haves to make a powerful unit, are going to be Dark Peasant Hands, Self-Copy, and Enrage. With these abilities, there's very little that's actually going to be able to beat them. Borderline S tier, these abilities are really good, but I just couldn't call them godly. These units don't really make champions, really. That's kind of the qualifier for God tier. Order units charge, Pharaoh Kneel, Dragon Kick, Thor Lightning, Sword Casting, Aegis Shield, Legacy Impale, Hurricane Slash, and Spawn Witches can all get you probably a top 8 unit within my league, honestly, for a tournament. But they aren't gonna be champions against Enrage and Self-Copy. Our A tier consists of Super Jump, Lightning Projectile Block, Void Monarch Dodge, Banshee Screen, Ice Arena, Rocket Volley, Solar Maelstrom, and the Chronomancer Dial. Our B+ tier, Bat Transformation, Reaper Wings, Fire Breath, Giant Foot Stomp, Taekwondo Kick, Bomb Spin, Vampire Bite, Godlike and Massive Projectile Block, Hay, Shuriken Tempest, Mosaic Wings, Weaver Explosion, Jester and Quick Draw Projectile Dodge, and Super Boxer Punch. Our B tier, Assassin Poof, Red Jade Spin Slash, Valkyrie Wings, Dragon Punch, Night Charge, Fire Wave, Teacher Parry, Arrow Volley, Cannon Barrage, Firestorm, Tornado Swipe, Vlad Impale, Backwards, Melee, Fencer, and Shogun Dodge. Our neutral C tier consists of Foolish and Monkey King Jump, the Mammoth Charge, Balloon Backpack, Big Crow Wings, Spin to Win, Big Headbutt, Cavalry Charge, both the Ice Breaths, Red Jade Kick, Minotaur Charge, Cactus Explosion, the Demon and Chronomancer transformations, Giant Fear, Ice Storm, Shockwave Hammer, Sword Implosion, and Gravestone Wall. Our D tier, Halfling Jump, Hover, Warrior Unit Stay, Pro Wings, Headbutt, Jester and Pirate Kick, Projectile Block, Mechanic Tank, and Demon Wings. And our F tier, Slow Walk, Lay Down, Stiffy Fear, Shout, Explosive Death, and Painter Dodge. With that being said, I thank you all for watching, and I will see you for the first daily tournament of Season 7.